Any moment. All right. It looks like we are live. We are live. Awesome, everybody. I'm so excited today. I have with me an amazing human. I would love to call her friend. We're getting to know each other more. We've actually been in some of the same circles for a while, but I have with me today Nicole Wehn. And Nicole is a business coach. She is a high achiever. She runs a very successful business in Germany. She coaches ambitious female entrepreneurs who are discovering their true identity and want to be able to embody their personality boldly in their business. So she's an online marketing expert, and she's a trained transformational embodiment coach. And she has found her dharma in empowering women to use their voice and to be confident and to make themselves heard to create an authentic business. Nicole, I'm so excited that you're here. So please just tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive right in here.
Thanks so much, Penny, for having me. And I think business-wise, you already shared quite a lot. I'm also a mom of two. I live in Munich, Germany. I am born and raised in Germany, but I'm educated in the United States. And yeah, what can I say? I really enjoy what I do professionally, and I'm glad to be here and to speak to your audience.
Yeah, so, you're a really successful woman. It takes a lot to get to the point where you are in your business. And a lot of people, as business owners, we tend to, show our confident face, right? And to lead with that confidence. So a lot of times, people don't realize what really goes on behind that face of confidence. So I would just like for you to share a little bit what led to you deciding to schedule a call and connect with me to see what it would be like to work together.
There were many things that continuously kept coming up for me, and I always have had coaches that I worked with to help me see my blind spots, to get over limiting beliefs, to work on do some identity work. I'm a trained coach myself, so I kind of like know how to coach myself through different or certain things. But there were recurring issues or challenges that I was facing in my everyday business life, that one of my coaches actually suggested that I go and see a hypnotist, and she actually recommended you. And I felt instantly like this is a really good recommendation, and I felt really, really comfortable when we had the call. And we were just discussing before we went on the session now that it was around money. And it's so interesting because I didn't even remember that it was that, because so much more unfolded and so many more deeper things actually came up that were like things I thought were in my private life that actually trickled down into my business as well, and were keeping me from experiencing the ease and the joy and the freedom that I was so longing for.
Yeah, having that self-trust around investing in ourselves and investing in our business, it really ties back to our past experiences. And can you share specifically like what that looked like in your business? Like, what were some of the things you were thinking and you were feeling at the time? Because I just love it that now when we talked about it, you had completely forgotten that was one of the things you initially reached out about.
Yes, so interesting what the mind does with you, right? So what it was that I had invested a significant amount of money in different parts of my business, into different types of support in my business, in order to let's say, improve the foundation in order to be able to grow even further than I've already grown this year, in processes and in streamlining different things in my business, also in PR, for example, or search engine optimization of the website, like really big chunks of money that I had invested in experts to come in and help me with. And I was doubting myself. Like I started to feel like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have invested in this all at once. Maybe I should have just done this differently. And I started having these voices in my head that would tell me, no, you can't spend money that you haven't made yet, which was certainly not true because I had made the money. And it was really interesting what was going on in my mind. And I couldn't, like, it was on such a subconscious, like a deep subconscious level, that I couldn't really put my finger on it either. And I think it took a couple of sessions to really unfold what this was all about. And I also reached out to you around my fear of abandonment, because the fear of abandonment kept me from speaking my truth and kept me from being confidently myself, like really trusting that being myself is good enough. And being myself is also exactly why the people are there to work with me. I was always afraid to really speak my truth because I was afraid of people leaving. And again, that fear of abandonment was so deeply rooted in my subconsciousness and had so much to do with my parents and my past that I think no regular coaching would have gotten me where I am today after just 2 months, short months, really, that it's been since we started working and finished working together. So I think that's, for me, I sometimes thought about why didn't I do this a year earlier? Why was I even suffering like this? You know, I could have called you a year earlier, but then again, it's divine timing anyhow. So no matter how I do it, it's always the right time.
Yeah, it is. And I find that when people have been engaged in some level of coaching, there's a higher level of awareness coming into it. And I think that's why we can dive so deep. Now, a lot of people talk about hypnosis and they say, oh, you can fix this in one session, you can fix that in one session. But when we're dealing with things like you presented, there are many layers and there can be a lot of things wrapped up together. So, how do you feel about the time frame that it took to help you work through it, and then contrast that to how much coaching you've done around yourself?
I feel the time it was like a blink of an eye compared to what I had done before. So that's why I think as soon as you realize that something is deeply rooted within yourself and it shows up in different parts of your life, I think you can just stop trying to coach your way through it and rather go down to the root cause of it and I don't know how to say it, but how to clear that for yourself. That's at least my experience now. And right now, I'm still learning the difference between a habit and really a trigger. And that's really interesting for me. You and I have had a couple of conversations around this. And that's where I feel like the Boxer support was really, really helpful for me to have that as well. Because sometimes after the sessions, a couple of days later, something that on the surface seemed like it wasn't related at all was all of a sudden like really did make sense that it had to do with the session that we did. So I think hypnosis is really effective, really quick, really effective. And for someone like me that loves a quick fix, but then again, it's not a quick fix like you take a pill and it's all gone. It's as I said, I'm still learning now the difference between an actual deeply rooted trigger and a habit reaction to a certain situation, as well as thoughts, how my thoughts are, how my thoughts are so habituated sometimes that I feel like it's a trigger, but then I talk to you and you quickly realize, or you quickly make me realize that it's just really literally a habit. And that to me is mind blowing. I mean, I'm every day I think, wow, this has been such an amazing experience this year. And it was so important to do it because I also had some traumatic experiences to get some closure on. And without even knowing it, this is where we were going with the sessions as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how those things influence us. And I just want to take a moment to talk about habit versus a trigger, because when we've had a pattern in our life long enough, we can actually respond to people or react out of habit just because our brain, when we hear a certain tone of voice or someone approaches us in a certain way, we can get that classically conditioned habit in there that it just triggers us to react, triggers us, bad word, we'll react out of habit, whereas a trigger is there's something even deeper emotional, like it's not just that it's a habit, that there's something underneath the surface, and we can put ourselves in a box sometimes when we don't get that outside objective look to say, hey, you know, what's going on here? And then we feel like we need somebody to help us fix ourselves, when my goal is to help you to be autonomous and independent and not to foster a dependence on me, to work through these things. So you had done some self-hypnosis before you and I connected. How does the work that we did compare to self-hypnosis, audios, that kind of thing? If you could share that.
I don't feel like it can compare at all, to be honest. To me, it's two totally different things. The self-hypnosis is something that I use to reprogram myself, to envision things that I want to achieve, to become who I want to be in certain aspects of my life, versus the hypnosis that you and I did. Was much more, again, I use the word efficient, way of going right down to the root cause of certain patterns in my life. And I have done self-hypnosis for a year and a half before. And for example, the topic around money it's completely gone. Like I've had several months now where I literally, I looked at my bank account and it did not matter what number it said, because I just felt like it didn't make any difference to me, versus before it would automatically trigger this thought of, oh my God, it's not enough. How are you going to pay the bills? And then I would try and work against that thought in my head. Like I would try and push it away. I would try and feel it in my body, like all of the different tools that I try to use on it. But now it's like completely gone. It's not even there anymore. So the voice that was there before, which we ended up finding out that was my mom's voice in one of the hypnosis sessions we had, is gone. Like it's not that she's gone too, she's left the planet, but her voice was still lingering on and telling me not to spend a certain way, because she had different beliefs around how money was supposed to be spent. And that voice was just so loud in my head still, and so present, you know. And because of the work, and I've done self-hypnosis around it for a long time, to get rid of some of these really deeply rooted beliefs that I had, like core beliefs almost. And now I feel like, at least with the money bit, it's gone. And another piece that we did around, that was a really interesting session, where I went back into my own birth and that made me realize a lot of things about me, and why I am, or why I was the way I was for a very, very long time, why I reacted to certain things the way I did, why I was running constantly, and why everything had to be done quickly for a very, very long time, why I had the feeling of not having enough time for a long time, and all of these things. And that's why I guess the simple answer to your question is I don't see it to be something that should be compared. Another fact is that I have you there as the facilitator. That's a completely different setup and a completely different environment than when I just sit there and I go into a 15, 20 minutes self-hypnosis session. I feel like the self-hypnosis is a great tool to implement new habits in the brain and to get new thought patterns implemented. But when you really come up against something that's deeply rooted and you can't shake, I feel like hypnosis is a great way to do it, to get not rid of it. That sounds awful, but
yeah. And to just touch on that, it's not that these very early events caused what you're dealing with now, but they became a foundational imprint, and then meaning got put on those things. And it's those misperceptions and incorrect associations that we make through life that get connected to those feelings that kind of bring this up. But we didn't always do that kind of work. Sometimes we did what's called conversational hypnosis. And I remember, one specific session, like, I think you were getting angry at me at one point, not angry at me, but angry that something you thought you had dealt with in the past came up again. Is there anything you would comment about that? Because I know that people often have questions for me about that.
I did not know what exactly conversational hypnosis was. I had no, like, by any stretch of the imagination, I could have never, I'm like, conversational hypnosis? That's contradictory to me, It's like you're having a conversation and you're still in hypnosis. How does that work? And when we did it, I didn't know that we were doing it, so that was great. And in the end, I remember you always asking me the same question, and I was like getting frustrated because I was like running out of answers. And then, and the question you kept asking is, so why is that a problem? And in the end, it was like mind blowing what came up in that session, because it ended up, the one thing that I tried to prevent by my behavior was the one thing that was actually happening because of the behavior. And that was, for me, was like, oh my God, like eye-opening, like I've not had in any other sessions, to be honest, any other coaching sessions. Yeah. And so what can I say to conversational hypnosis? You can't, gotta be there.
Yeah, it's like coaching on steroids.
Yes.
It's really unique. And the other thing that comes in is you don't give suggestions in that. It's basically guiding you to a place to get your mind to think about the situation differently. And, that's where everything kind of falls into place for you. I mean, overall, how would you describe the entire experience? If you could just, in one sentence.
Mind blowing. That's not a sentence. I know, it's just a word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the session was mind-blowing. That's a sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So you mentioned how there were so many other layers of things connected that you really weren't expecting. What, other than just the money, what has changed in your life over the course? Let's see, we started working together in September. We worked together for 8 weeks, roughly. So what's life look like now?
It's a lot calmer. My mind has quieted down, and I feel like my nervous system has also regulated itself, or it's much easier for me to regulate my nervous system, to not get into stories or interpretations or really stuff that's been getting my mind to go around in circles. I used to have this habit of my mind just going insanely in circles. Like I would rerun a situation in my head a million times and think about how I could have done it better. And that has stopped entirely. And I feel like almost, since it was so important for me to speak my truth and to be authentic, I feel like our work together has played a significant role in getting me to be that authentic person, like truly myself, and not some role or some mask that I put on when I go on screen, for example, when I work with my clients. And
Yeah.
so to me, um, I, I feel it feels different. It's difficult to describe. It was important that it happened at the time that it did, because it just I feel moving forward from here, I'm just going to experience more and more of the benefits of having worked with you.
I want to touch on a couple of different things that you said, and let's just go a little bit deeper. How does being more calm and no longer going in circles in your head, how is that positively impacting you and your family and your business?
So I am it's a lot easier for me to stay calm with the kids, where versus before I used to blow up quite easily and yell at them, because I was just so agitated and irritated by their behavior. And now I have a lot more compassion and a lot more bandwidth to really stand my ground, to also get them to obey some rules that I've set up. Like whenever I used to get, whenever they used to be children and just really just, tell me that they are that they want to do something different than what I tell them to do, I would get really angry at them. And that anger and that what's it called? That almost that aggression in me has quieted down, and the feeling of my kids are holding me back has also changed for me completely. I don't feel like that at all anymore. And what else? So calm for me is literally having more bandwidth to stand or to go through my day without getting into anger or into frustration much.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you'd had a feeling that your kids were holding you back. Would you mind like talking a little bit more about that? Because this isn't the first time I've heard that.
Well, I have two kids, they're 12 and 9, and I also am running a business. So but one of my highest values is family and love. So whenever the kids get sick, when we have certain things that are involving them, they're both very active sports-wise, for example, it would always be my priority to drop whatever I was doing and taking care of the children. And that has shifted. So no, not that has shifted, but I would feel some sort of resentment around it, because I have these goals and these dreams and things I wanted to do in my business. And for a long time, I had this feeling of them holding me back, me being a victim of my circumstance. So I can't grow the business I want the business to grow because I have children. And now I have reframed that for myself, that my children are actually making me really, really fast, and that I'm doing it not only for myself, but also for them and for their own growth in life as well. So the more I can grow and heal, the better off they're going to be. And that's what I mean by that I used to feel like my children were holding me back, and I don't feel like that anymore.
That's huge. And I know I have some former clients that I have testimonials from who not the exact same experience, but the shift of doing the work together, the way that it shifts the relationships with their children, it is just life changing. And that's not just in the moment in today, that's for the rest of your life. It's one of those unexpected things that has come out of all of this. So what are you looking forward to the most now in your life?
What am I looking forward most to in my life? You mean on a daily basis, or you mean in general?
Business, family in general?
Christmas?
Yeah.
In my business, well, I mean, my business has had a fantastic year, and the year is not even over yet. And so for next year, I feel like this newfound confidence, which is really interesting because I was confident before and I was authentic before, but I still felt like something was holding me back. And that was literally the fear of abandonment. That was like really holding me back on a very, very deep level. And that means that I was still being authentic the way I was, but I wasn't allowing myself to truly be myself because I was always afraid of people leaving me for it. And this year has shown that it's okay when people leave, and I'm still here, so nothing bad happens. And the work that you and I have done has really freed me from this. It's still there because I guess it's nothing that will ever go away because it's like deeply rooted also in culture and in us humans in general. But it's become something on the back burner. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how 2023 will be for me moving forward. And so far, it's already been a fantastic November and December. And the way that I communicate in my business, in my podcast, with my clients, the clients I attract are so much more soul aligned. And I feel that has to do with the way that I show up, the way that I present myself, and the way that I talk, and the way that I talk about certain topics. And yeah, I'm just looking forward how 2023 will be for me as well, and seeing what else comes up, you know?
Yeah, I see a lot of people who really discount and dismiss, wanting to attain this authenticity. But when we're not fully authentic, we have misalignment of identity, we have misalignment of values. It can be so subtle, but then we hold back on decisions in our life that are so very important. So, when people come to me and they say, you know what, I want to be the most authentic version of myself, then we spend that first session, we really dive into what it is that you really want, and I remember doing that with you, and pretty much with almost 100% of my clients, when we're finished going through that and I read back to them what it is that I've picked up from you that is so important to you, it's like, oh my God, where did that come from? And I'm like, I was just writing down what you were saying. But, we get so caught in our thinking. There's one last question I want to ask before we start to wrap it up here. And one of the first questions you asked me was, would you being a native German speaker in any way be detrimental to the process? I think the answer's already here, but I just wanted to specifically ask it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, it was like I'm not sure if my subconscious speaks English. So, because I was born and raised in Germany and in German. So like for me being in my head, I was like, how's that even going to work when we're in hypnosis and maybe I'm missing words or whatever. And I mean, I am fluent in English, so I must say that. But you immediately told me that you'd worked with clients that where English wasn't their native language. And I felt, well, I just give it a go. And I must say, there's no difference. It didn't make any difference. Yeah. But it was an interesting question for me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for some people who aren't as fluent in English, I do have to allow for a little bit of time sometimes when there's a complex thought that they're articulating. But beyond that, yeah, I typically don't have any issues from my end either. So what was the most important thing for you to achieve success in the work that we did together?
I don't think there was just one thing. Was there was just one thing that was most important to me. Mm, to achieve success. Mm, there's not just one thing. I think the whole experience was just perfect the way it was, and everything that unfolded, everything that showed up did at the perfect time. So to
Yeah.
me, I felt every session to me was a success, because I knew that something had shifted. So, and that was beautiful to feel like that, the sessions we had.
Yeah. And it's not a straight line either, right? I mean, to be fully transparent, it's not a straight line. Everything builds. You mentioned that, why didn't you consider doing this a year ago? What would you say to someone who's thinking, oh, I don't feel like it's impacting me that much. I can put it off, because I do have people who reach out to me and things are already falling down around them by the
Mm-hmm.
time they reach out to me. So what would you say to someone who's thinking, oh, this isn't the priority right now?
Oh man, what would I say to a person like that? That's a difficult question, Penny. um, what would I say to a person like that says it's not a priority right now?
Yeah, to fix the problem.
It wasn't a priority for me either. For one, it didn't feel like it needed to be made a priority. Yet I still chose to book the call with you, reach out to you, and not only reach out, but then book the call, reschedule the call, and went on the call. So I guess trusting your intuition in that respect. So I felt that it was time. I felt I needed to do this with you, even though
Mhm.
it didn't feel like a priority. So I trusted my intuition. I trusted that everything was exactly as it was supposed to be, and you were put in front of me at exactly the right time to start this type of work and to start
Mhm.
looking at things that I had put off for a very long time. For example, the
Yeah.
grief around my parents' death, and it was just really, really good timing. So if you feel like you want to work with Penny, then I wouldn't put it off. I would just do it.
Yeah.
What I did.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even want to imagine, where things would be if you waited another year, especially with where the world is going right now. A lot of people are really, digging in their businesses, or they're running and hiding in their businesses because of what's going on economically. And now that you have this money stuff off the table, you can be objective
Mhm.
in those decisions and not have all of that emotion clouding and getting in the way. So I want to thank you very much. Why don't you let people know where they can find you if they want to connect with you? And I will just let you wrap it up.
Thank you. Thank you. So my content is mostly in German, not mostly. My content is solely in German. So if you are a German speaker or you understand German, then I invite you to listen to my podcast. It's called Her Brand. I also have a website that's Nicole Wehn, NicoleWehn.de. And you find every information on there. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I'm happy if you reach out and let me know that if any of what I shared was helpful to you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with you.
All right. And for anyone who's interested in knowing if this is a fit for you, just send me a direct message or go to the website pennychason.com, go to the Work With Me page, fill out an application, and we can get on a call and chat. So thank you again, Nicole. So grateful for
My
you.
pleasure. My pleasure. Very much. Thank you so much for everything, Penny.